talking today with Kevin O'Leary of Dragon's Den and Shark Tank fame, and of course, you are known as the tough guy on this show. When did you first know, as a young, even as a child, that you had it in you to be an entrepreneur?
I didn't know until I was working one day at an ice cream parlor. It was one of my first jobs early in high school, and the woman said to me one day, probably 2 weeks after I've been scooping ice cream, she said, "Get down on your knees and scrape the gum out of the cracks of this ice cream parlor," because it had sort of a tile floor. And I said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I was hired to scoop ice cream, not clean the floor." She said, "Well, guess what? You're fired." And I realized right then and there that she had control over my life, that it's not good being an employee. And that was probably a very important lesson for me that I didn't even know I was learning at the time. But I said to myself then, I'll never work for anybody again. And when you say that, you have to go create your own business. And that was the beginning of my, I guess, entrepreneurial spirit.
Obviously, you like to be in control, and I know on your programs, a lot of people come and they want to give you a small stake in the company for a sizable investment. Even if you think it's a viable company, how are you in a situation where you have your money in, but you're not in control? Can you be a minority partner in a company?
I don't often do deals like that, particularly in venture startups. I want 51%. My thinking is this. Sometimes the idea has so much merit that it's worth investing in, but I'm not necessarily sure the person that brought the idea has the executional skills to actually capitalize on it. So I argue to them, listen, let's go into this with our eyes open. If you're able to actually execute the business plan, you'll keep that job as a 49% shareholder. The minute I see you can't perform, I'll fire you and replace you with management that can. You'll still benefit as a 49% shareholder, but I want the ability to take you out of the equation if you're inefficient. Because I make the difference between a shareholder and an employee, as I always have. You can hire great management. Sometimes the founder is not the right person to run the business.
When you talk about business, you talk about a person has to be prepared to give it all, to go in after the business. Does anyone ever talk to you about business ethics, and what is the Kevin O'Leary rule of business ethics?
My business ethic goes like this. The government sets rules, which we all have to abide by, and you can't breach those. You have to stay within the context of the law, of course. However, business is war, and I like lucky generals. I want people to get up and try and decimate their competition. I want to pour boiling oil over the competition. I want to win. And I'm not trying to make friends in business. I'm trying to make money. So my ethic is all-out war until you're successful, and then more war to be more successful. Decimate the competition, grow your business. Remember why you're working every day is for the shareholder. That's my ethic. And if you don't like it, you don't want to work for me. And my attitude about my employees is, listen, you come to work for Kevin O'Leary, don't even come into work on Sunday if you're not there on Saturday. But the reason you're here is to become rich. We're not going to be ever friends, but I am going to leave you wealthy if we're successful, and that's why you should work.
How do you find those killer people for your team? Because obviously, you can't do it all yourself, you oversee it all, but you need great people. Can you tell when you look them in the eye, and then once they know they're good, how do you hang on to them?
It's all about building a team that shares the same culture. And what happens in the early stage of a business is I find I go through a lot of people. Generally, 30% of the people that come in the early stages are let go, or they leave on their own because they don't fit. They're not into that aggressive culture, or they don't have the desire to work that hard. I try and make all of my employees shareholders. So even in the case of O'Leary funds, 10% of the fund is owned. I give it to the employees, but I make this provision. I say to them, we're a private company. In order for you to cash in on these shares, you have to be here the night before we go public. That means if you get terminated or you don't stay, you get nothing. This is about team building. So I find the culture of a team is set from the chairman. That's what you have to do. And, or from, in the case of this firm, it's a great partnership. I've always found, in entrepreneurs, even myself, knowing your weaknesses is better than knowing your strengths, because you're going to find a partner. And great companies are partnerships, and certainly I have a partner here called Connor O'Brien. The two of us run this, but we have a very specific culture. If you don't cut it, you're gone. And everybody else is in there knowing, wow, these guys, they work hard, but they want us to be wealthy. And that's all I care about. Why go to work if you're not going to be rich?
You're used to people pitching you all the time, but you have funds now. So if I came to you and I said, I have some money I'm interested in investing, what would be your pitch that would make you different than everybody else out there with funds?
I always tell this story about my funds. My mother, when I was a young boy in the early 50s, She was a seamstress on a clothing line in Montreal, Canada, a company called Kitty's Togs. Every week, they used to get paid on Thursdays, she'd put a third of her paycheck into Bell bonds. They were like government bonds in those days, paying 6 or 7%. And she used to say to me, and I never realized what an important lesson this was at that time, she'd say to me, Kevin, never spend the principal, just the interest. My whole fund philosophy is about preservation of capital now. I don't own a single security in all the 11 fund families of O'Leary funds that doesn't pay interest. We don't even look at stocks that don't pay interest. So we're all about preserving capital, providing sustainable income distribution every month, because I'm the largest shareholder in these funds, and finally we look for capital appreciation by buying companies that are growing free cash after CapEx. I love cash. In cash I trust. Cash is the only thing I care about in investment, and I look at my portfolio like a chicken on a spit, dripping cash. If it doesn't pay a dividend, I don't own it, and none of my investors do either. It's a philosophy, and if you don't like cash, you don't want to invest in my funds.